Welcome to Authentic Living and Loving channel, where trailblazers share stories of success, living to the beat of their own drum, in places that inspire and feed your imagination. Get ready to discover, explore, grow, and find your bliss. Here's your host, Dr. Jordan Alexander.
Today, we are fortunate to have Dani Rius. Dani's an expert in resilience and a well-being practitioner. She's also a teacher and a researcher, having studied psychology and counseling and achieved her master's in science and applied psych, a master's in research, and a teaching degree. Dani's vision is to become the learning hub for next generation leaders. She's passionate about mindsets and personal leadership growth and focusing on cultivating adaptive resilience. And we know we can use that in these increasingly complex and volatile times. Welcome, Dani Rius. Thank you so much for joining us and for coming and talking about your upcoming book, your work, and mindful empathy.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. And in fact, I'm the one who is very thankful because through you, more people will get to know about the benefits of mindful empathy. So thank you very much for welcoming me and also for your introduction.
Thanks, Dani.
I love your theme about authenticity. I really love it and I can really connect with it. And yeah, I've from the time when I was a teacher, a long time ago when I started as a teacher, when I was very young, we studied Carl Rogers, and Carl Rogers is like the person who talked about authenticity back then. And I'm talking about the 80s. It's been a while.
Wow.
So I was really, really connected. And he talked a lot about self-directive learning and all that. And it was really, really great because it made so much sense to me. People don't learn because they're told to learn, but because they feel connected with what they learn.
Absolutely. And you're connecting a lot of learners, both sort of in an academic standpoint and also businesses. So I'm really, really keen to hear about all of those experiences, maybe not all of them, but some of the ones, so that people both in a personal situation and also in their professional, in the business sense, in their career side, get a bit of an understanding of how mindful empathy can apply to both of those areas. So Dani, I can see that you're all bundled up. New Zealand's just literally had a cold snap. You're dialing in from Christchurch. I'm up in Wellington in New Zealand. You look really warm.
I actually am, and this is really warm because it's llama. And let me actually show you because it's just, I find it so pretty.
Ah.
So that's my poncho.
Lovely.
And this is very typical from my place of origin. I'm Latin American, I'm Argentinian. And you can see this in the north of Argentina and in Peru and Bolivia. So whoever's traveled will have seen this kind of poncho, and it's really warm. So
fantastic. I'll have to get one of those myself because it is quite cold in windy Wellington sometimes.
Just one thing about this, you know how we see ponchos all over and they're, everybody wears different kinds of ponchos. Well, believe me, ponchos come from Latin America, but at some point they become popular. And now we have all sorts of ponchos, but they are originally from Latin America. There you go. Some fact.
Well, that's great. That's great. It's like the pavlova and the farlap, the horse and stuff, that everybody's always trying to claim things when they become popular.
Exactly.
So you mentioned a little bit about Argentina. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your younger years. You grew up in United States and in a diplomatic family. I can imagine you've got all kinds of stories and experienced all sorts of different cultures.
Yeah, that's right. Well, growing up in a diplomatic family is another similar story is the ones of military. We travel a lot as children. So there's a lot of isolating yourself from the people you love. Okay, I'm just going to say that much because there's so much to it, really. But having that experience is so important to what I've become today and so important to the book I've written today, right? So I was not born in Argentina. I did not grow up in Argentina, and but that's the typical thing of a diplomatic life. You just don't live where your parents are from. So very often when people ask me, where are you from? Now I'm okay to say, well, I'm from different places, right? So I'll say I'm a global citizen, for instance, right? But it was very difficult because I'm not just from one place, because I grew up in all these different places, right? And then I immigrated to different places as well. But so I was born in Denmark. Do you want to get a little dizzy? Because you
Sure.
will with me.
Sure. Why not? We're
I'll
here.
just
Why
go
not?
very
Let's go.
I'll just go very quickly, yeah? So I know I'll get you dizzy, everyone does, and maybe you'll just remember Argentina and that's all, that's fine. But so I was born in Denmark, went to Russia, where my parents were living actually. So they were just traveling and having some fun around Europe, and there I was born. Pop, out I came. And then back to Russia, and immediately, like 2.5 or 3 months later, the United States. So I could have been American if I was born there, right? But not by 3 months. And I lived there, then in Argentina. So first in New York, then Buenos Aires, Argentina, back to the US and Maryland, close to Washington, D.C., where my dad was based, and then back to Argentina, and then Germany, Munich, and then Frankfurt, and then back to Argentina. I kept traveling after that, but that was my younger years.
Wow. So a bit all over the place. So did you get a sense, perhaps from your parents, about your culture, and did that sort of influence you, as well as being around these different geographies, these different places? What sort of things stuck, about those, your family versus the different places?
That's a very interesting question, because I would have loved to be able to say, yes, it was very Argentinian and that was it. So I had some kind of continuity. But the reality is that I didn't have that much continuity because I was inserted in the local schools. So I spoke the language of the place. I spoke English before Spanish, for instance. And most people just wouldn't believe me when I said that. I don't know if you want to believe me or not, but I spoke English before Spanish, right? I learned Spanish when I went to Argentina. I was 10 years old. I was left completely in the dark because I couldn't speak any other language but Spanish. I was completely forbidden to speak English. Got stuck in the traumatic part now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because a lot of the cultures, even in New Zealand, I mean, everyone's, we're becoming a very global world, like the whole mixing of cultures and things. You wouldn't be the first person who hasn't, it's almost disconnected from their origins of birth versus everything around them, and new immigrants. I mean, myself, I'm an immigrant, grew up with a Ukrainian and Croatian background, so we spoke different language at home. It was really challenging when at school and things. My parents had the accent. My dad talked like this, everybody made fun of. So I think those things really stick with you, and so I think you mentioned about the traumatic. They must have an imprint left on you. And how do you kind of get over that stuff then?
Oh, that's like fast forwarding many, many years, because for me, one of the basic needs was to have an identity. Most people don't worry about identity. They just grow up in one place. They're always with their friends. Friends may change, but they're in the same city, the same town, the same country at least, right? But it's that, how do you actually have an identity when you have parents who are also very different? Because I had my mother from a Spanish origin and my dad from an Italian German descent. So they were very, very different themselves. So there you have bicultural within the family. Then growing up in different countries with different cultures, different languages. How do you then say, and I remember my big question was often when I was a teenager, it was, where am I from? I'm not from here. I'm not from there. Where am I from? And I could never answer the question when I was younger.
So,
And only fast forwarding many years could I work out the identity issues, and I'll come to that later.
that's great. I'm looking forward to you getting to that because you know, as you know, in New Zealand, you know, the Maori talk about your turinga waiwai, and you know, where is that place that you stand? Where is that place that you feel like home? And I mean, it's a great lead into how the heck did you end up in New Zealand? Because you know, you had a lot of cultures and places to choose from, and now boom. Why are you here?
Well, it's not really that you choose. I remember living many years in Argentina, and at that time I wanted to leave because I didn't feel that it was making progress. There was a lot of issues around, as a woman, you were expected to be a mother and not really develop professionally. You would go to work because you had to, as opposed to because you wanted to. And it was really contrary to what I grew up with, because I grew up in the United States and Germany, and they were, at least where I lived, because I know the United States is very, you know, there are different pockets and different areas, but where I lived, it was very progressive as well. So it was, you can become whoever you want. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool. And then there I was, oh, you have to be a mother. And I love mothers. Yeah, I'm a mother myself. And I love that my mother took care of us, but that was just not my calling. What brought me to New Zealand is that I got married and I started following my husband. So I had traveled before a lot of time, right, as I showed you, but then I went to Canada, and then I met my husband, and then when we went to from Vancouver to Montreal, and then from Montreal to England, and then from England to here. You don't always choose, right?
Mm.
And I mean, good things happen from what you don't choose to, right? I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, it's great. And I've grown so much spiritually from coming here, so that's really great. But you don't always choose. But if you go with the flow, you go and connect to what's happening at the moment, then you end up where you end up as well. And having that confidence, I guess, in the uncertainty is the hardest for most people. And that's what I've had to actually work with my whole life. So what brought me here, to answer to your question, although it's in a very roundabout way, is my husband. He got a job here, and I actually encouraged him to apply to New Zealand, because he was like, oh, that's far away from home. He's Mexican, so that is far away from home too for him.
Yeah, well, Christchurch will be interesting weather-wise as well. Like, he's going to need a poncho himself. So I mean, it's really interesting. So you've come into New Zealand, and obviously you've been grappling with a lot of these issues that have arisen as part of growing up, as part of your journey, the finding your identity. You ended up in this current work, which I just think is so important. That people understand. And you know, you've talked a little bit living in the now. You know, life is what happens to us when we're busy planning. You know, there are all of these pointers that are saying, hey, get your foot off the accelerator and just enjoy life a little bit more. But yet at the same time, life is spinning faster than ever, and there's more stuff. And so your topic of mindful empathy just seems to absolutely be right now such an important area that all humans, regardless of geography, really need to get our heads around. So maybe just talk to us a little bit about what is mindful empathy, and how did you start working on this important area?
I think it's a process. It's a very, very long process that I went through. And part of it is that identity that I tried to build. And it was like, who am I? So that was always in the background. And while I was asking, who am I was actually not looking inside enough. I was trying to define myself through how others saw me. Right. And I think that many people, and I think it's a natural thing, you tend to take on an identity. It can be a professional identity. It can be an identity as a daughter, as a son, right? And so I had to work with my mind, with myself inside to say, okay, this is who I am. Just accept this is who I am. And not be looking for reinforcements from outside, from Canadians, from Americans, from Germans, from Kiwis. It wasn't looking for reinforcement, but accepting who I am, and accepting that some people will like me, some people won't, and that's fine. Be fine with it. And this is such a human thing, because it's not me. Okay, this happens to everyone. We want to be liked. And so through learning mindfulness, I understood, and I'm still, it's always a process, right? I haven't died yet. So
Yeah.
while I'm alive, we're still in a process, like on a journey, right? But I really saw that I needed to connect with myself. And so mindful empathy, I mean, there's a long story behind how that happened, right? But because I studied counseling and coaching and psychology and education, and they all revolve around the educating adults, educating children as well, right? It's that education, it's that developing people, right?
The mindfulness part, I mean, there's a lot of, everybody's talking about mindfulness now, and mindset and growth mindset. And the thing that kind of really piqued my interest when I was looking at the work that you're doing is that you've pulled that theory around mindfulness and all this, the kind of the brain stuff, together with the empathy side. And so that the empathy as humans, particularly now in this crazy time that we're in, it just seemed to me to be, putting those two together,
Yeah.
really quite useful, that cross section.
And I remember this all started actually so long ago when I did my teaching degree, because I remember studying social psychology, and there was big debate about whether you were a psychological being, or so that was one side, one theory, and then there was others that were your sociological beings, right? So part of a society, and where relationships take a big impact. They make a big impact on who you are. And I remember debating and saying, you know what? It's not one or the other, it's both. And that's what I did now,
Yeah.
without realizing it. Later, I connected. Oh, yeah, actually, I've been doing this for a long time in my head, and studying and all that. And I studied because I need to understand things. I wanted to understand things that nobody could explain to me, because you grow up and you just, you go along and learn from your parents and from school. But my life was so disruptive that I had no answers and I had no continuity to learn. So I had to study to answer all those questions that I couldn't.
I think sometimes that I mean, talk about your calling and that that feeling in your gut that you have to go and do stuff. Obviously, this topic area is something that you had to do for yourself personally, but as a result of you actually following your own path, which is what this authentic living stuff is all about, you've actually now are contributing, globally, so that others have, the step-by-step kind of guide. We look at our heads and our hearts, and what you're talking about is kind of, would you, in a really simple way, is it bridging those two ways of thinking about things?
It is absolutely, it is innovative, right? Because as you say, I'm putting those two together. So there are lots of people talking about mindfulness, a lot of people talking about empathy. And then what I realize is that you actually can't be too empathetic if you're not mindful in a healthy way. And this is really important, in a healthy way. What happens in the workplaces, for instance, is that people, because there's so much change, there's so much instability, we've lost workplaces, many workplaces due to COVID, due to earthquakes, due to so many different things, right? So there's a continuous flux of change. And so the only thing you can do to protect yourself is to know how to be mindful of yourself, take care of yourself. So self-care is really important. And that's the mindfulness side, helps with that self-protection and self-care. And then on the other hand, you also need to know how to relate better, because we are social beings. And I think now with COVID and lockdowns, and I just heard Andrew today in breakfast one, and he sounded like desperate being locked down.
You need to send him a copy of your book, Dani.
Yeah, could do.
So
Yeah.
so you're in Christchurch, and just, you know, building on some of those stresses that are happening, the series of earthquakes that went on, you know, it was interesting, because I remember, you know, a number of government agencies that they had moved their butts quicker than you could ever imagine, and we were saying, you know, how come we can move so quickly in this circumstance, but then we can't, you know, we turn around 5 minutes later and go back to the, oh, you know, what were your lessons, and how did the earthquake situation inspire you and your work?
Well, yeah, it was, well, number one, through the earthquakes, I got in touch with mindfulness teachers. I learned with Buddhists, who are the masters of meditation. They've been around since, like, I think it's the 5th century before Christ. So they know their stuff. That's why I love it. I love to learn with those who really, really know their stuff, and they know the meditation techniques. And it has helped me a lot to center myself and to get my mind to the place it needs to be relaxed, calm, peaceful, and also well enough myself so that I can also be well for others. What I saw is that people were connecting more. So going back to that side of, okay, that was internal, but what happens in the social aspect? People were starting to look at each other, to greet each other, to ask, are you okay? Do you need my help? So there was the student army, for instance, at UC, and I was right there with the student army people, because it was right, you know, we were all gathered in the same place because we couldn't be in the same buildings that we would work normally, because they were just closed for safety purposes. And so people really got together. So it seems to take some like radical thing, disrupting your life, to then look and say, okay, it's not all about me.
Well, even during COVID, there was a lot of stuff going on around social media and things. People just having a second look at what's important in life, and even some of the companies and government agencies, they were saying that their teams felt closer, and that they were, you know, as you say, you know, people were checking in on each other. They were, it just, it blew my mind, because it's like, why does it take, and you mentioned it just then, why does it take a global pandemic, an earthquake, climate change, for us to get our shit together and be nice to each other? It just seems ridiculous.
I think the key there is vulnerability, right? When we feel that we are so powerful that we don't need anyone, then why connect with others? But when we connect with that vulnerability, it's like, okay, I'm not okay. I need to reach out to others, and then maybe even see, oh, actually they're doing even worse than me. I didn't lose my house. Things were broken, but others lost their houses. Oh my God. And maybe you know someone, or someone who's a friend of someone's, who lost their house, who lost someone dear, who lost their lives. And that's where, with that vulnerability, with that humanity, you start to realize, oh, actually, what I'm worried about is not so important. And then we forget, but the truth is, what we're about is not so important. So it's not about, what job I have or position, how many cars I have, and all those material things that do not add anything to humanity.
I guess it's that vulnerability in, certainly in our generation. We grew up, never let them see you sweat, don't ever cry, it's different. I think growing up, that your son and my daughters, they're in a different sort of generation and things. But I have to admit, I've still got the hangover from trying to balance how soft you can be, how vulnerable you can be. And it wasn't until I hit my 50s, I know I look 35, but 50s, that I started going, actually, I want to care about people. I want to bring my whole self into everything that I do. And I remember one of the guys that I was working with on one of the national strategies. And when I left that situation, we were at the leaving do, and he said, this has been the best job I've had. He'd been in government for a good number of decades. And he said, you brought caring back into the workplace for me. And I thought, oh my goodness, for you've been doing this for 30, 40 years. And we kind of we've lost in some ways the caring for each other in a business sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing that I really struggle with. Many organizations are like, no, that it doesn't make any business sense, for instance, right? So, where's the monetary benefit, right? So if you've got a salesperson, then the salesperson can sell more. Oh, yay. So that makes business sense. But that is only looking superficially at things, because there's so much research that indicates that happy employees make productive employees. And what happens with productive employees? Rise in sales, rise in high quality products, etc. Right? So you want highly engaged, happy people,
Absolutely.
right? There's even toxicity and bullying, all those things you hear about is because of lack of caring. And that can come from the very top, because when you have it from the very top, it trickles down. That's just the way it works.
It does work,
right?
That way. It does.
Through mindful empathy, you can do those little bits that can make a difference, even through your little bit, because people start observing, oh, this person is always okay. How's that? Everyone is toxic around here, but this person is all fine. I wonder what the secret is, right? And then it can trickle. So it's all about starting somewhere. It's all about someone starting and you starting. Every single person can start anytime.
Oh, Dani, you in your book, you mentioned about you can improve your productivity. There's a converse driver for businesses as well to do this mindful empathy stuff, because look at all the stress related mental health issues that we're facing. And you quote in your book Dr. Lass, who is a health and workplace wellness expert. And you say 44% of workplace health issues, 44%, so almost half, are related to stress, depression, and anxiety. And here's the real kicker, and this is where I think the business driver is huge. So all of these stress-related mental health issues account for 54%, so over half of all the lost days of work due to illness.
There you go. Yep, this data is from New Zealand. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
she's got
Wow.
global data, but she also has New Zealand data.
Oh, that's
Yep.
interesting. And you've got your
Yeah.
own client base as well. You do a lot of coaching and resilience training within organizations. And there was one case study that sort of stuck out for me, where you were talking about a client who was hallucinating. She was so stressed out about work. Can you share that story with us just a little bit about just how it can
Mm.
play out?
She was, like insecure in her job. And so I wanted to delve into it, what's going on, right? And the kinds of hallucinations that I explained there is my boss called me in, and she would really get sweaty and her heart beating hard, hard and quick. And later I was like, okay, so what happened? What was it? I was like, oh no, there's this new guy who came, and he wanted me to mentor. you know
So
it's like,
almost the
okay,
opposite.
yeah, that was it exactly.
Uh,
So of course I can challenge at the moment, but that was a vulnerable moment, you see. And the thing is that we all have those vulnerable moments, and I see it in clients, I see it in friends, I see it in the news. You can just, if you start observing, you see how we hallucinate, in the sense that and I'm taking this, they use it a lot in Buddhism, they say that we hallucinate actually. And so it's thinking that something will happen, and just that worry about
mm,
the future makes us anxious, and we completely disconnect from reality. And that's the hallucination part, is what you're seeing is actually not happening. It's not happening, but your body, your brain is indicating, is telling you that that's going to happen. And so your bodily sensations and bodily functions are tuned in to what you think. And that's why I just love the kind of potential that having more people understand about mindfulness and trying it, is that we do influence the way things happen to us. And it seems like, I remember even my mother would say this when I was younger, and it was like, nah, that's not true. Things just happen. No, they don't just happen. They happen for a reason. That's the other thing she would say. But now I understand it, right? It's because she was very wise and she was very compassionate, a really good role model for me in terms of that personal development.
mm.
So you we do hallucinate, and that in our brain. So I've studied a little bit of neuroscience, not scientifically, but with people who have studied scientifically, and they bring it down into something that the common Joe can understand. And
Yeah.
that's what's in my book as well, right? So it's the brain actually makes connections, thousands of connections. And if we are connecting to one negative thought or a trigger, for instance, right? And we connect to that trigger, and it's like, okay, if someone says, oh, you're looking down today, right? Then that will trigger, you get like the full blown depression sensation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's a trigger. Now, each time that happens, later you don't even need someone to tell you that. You're already triggered to do that, and then you get yourself even more into a depressive state. So your brain starts making the connection. Say this is the brain, okay? I'm just, this is totally non-academic, right? But just to kind of understand how it works, right? This is the brain. Here, say that's the connections that are being made, is that depressed, sad, nobody likes me, I'm not likable, etc. All those thoughts. What will it attract? Will it attract more of this, and will we have more points of connections, or will it attract the positive thoughts of, yeah, I'm okay, yeah, I know my stuff, and I'm confident, and I love my life, and I love what I'm doing, right? It won't connect to this. It will connect more to this. So we're training the brain. When we have a thought, we're training our brain to keep thinking within this area. But we
And
actually, why? We don't want this. We want this.
it's
So we
it's
do influence what happens to us, because negative is what we're experiencing.
It is that sort of reinforcing almost the wrong messages, isn't it? Like we're strengthening, we're practicing almost on the wrong side of or the wrong set of thoughts. Not wrong, but it's just going to perpetuate the negative side. And I think if we bring it back into people's relationships and things, one of the books that I read a couple of years ago was Christian Northrup's Dodging Energy Vampires, and she talks a lot about that negative side and how you can encounter these people who are obviously working on and strengthening that side of those thoughts that you're talking about. Are there ways that we can, you say we should be vulnerable, and I get that, but then there's also people that are reinforcing their negative belief side, and we encountered them, and we've all encountered people that you get off the phone with them, or you get off of, you've spent some time with them, honestly, and you just feel like, I need to go have a nap because I've just drained completely.
Yeah.
And so I mean, how do you stay safe, still be vulnerable, not feed the neural pathways that are creating a negative mindset? How do you practically get around that stuff?
That's an excellent question. And that's coming into that empathy side now, right? And there are different kinds of empathy. And the one that you want to develop that can help is the compassionate empathy, or just compassion, right? So that means that you're not buying into it. That's what it really means. You're not buying into it. Then like, oh, I feel sorry for this person. Even if you love the person, you see them every day, right? But at some point they're like vampires, right? Because very often it's people who are close to us who are vampires, right? It's not someone you don't know, because otherwise they don't drain you. In that case, it's really about realizing, okay, this is his or her issue. It's not mine. That's number one. And then through that knowledge, then understand that you need to be compassionate about them, because whenever someone is angry, aggressive, or having some kind of or jealous, some kind of negative, really negative in the sense that it's not doing them good. It's not doing anyone good. Yeah. They are not in the right state of mind. And these are states. It's not a continuous thing. It's like, oh, I hate this person. No, there's no need to hate anyone, because they are in states of mind. It's not a permanent thing.
You're talking about some of this stuff, and you talk about this a lot in your book. Before we get into that sort of exercise, if you'd be able to, that would be amazing. Maybe we can just traverse
For
a little
you,
bit.
I will.
Oh, thank you. I just think it's incredible. I've watched you in action before, and I just think it would be something that would just be amazing for people to have an opportunity to see you in action. Just a bit about the book itself and about the writing process. So you've got a co-author, Wayne Duncan. What was it like? I mean, to write with someone. How did that process, from just an author's perspective, work for you?
Well, it's incredible, but it was an amazing experience. It was really great. We both enjoyed it very much, and we did it all online.
Wow.
So we only met after completing the book, after publishing it, because it is published online. And we'll talk about this later, but I'm launching the physical book later. We're launching it later this year.
Yeah.
But we met after we launched it online.
Wow, it's like a first date or something after you've gotten married. Or an arranged marriage or something.
Yeah. But it was really great, because we were very in tune with what we with our our values, our ideas, or we just connected very well. And I think it helps that we both are from a teaching background somehow, because as a teacher, you want to give others the knowledge. That's you have to
Yeah.
want to do
Sharing.
this, right? Because there was no money involved in this, right? It wasn't, oh,
Yeah.
I'll pay you to write. No, this was all a voluntary thing. Let's get together, let's write a book. He's a research consultant. He worked in schools. He was a principal. He was in the defense force. So he's got a very interesting background as well. For him, it was a learning experience in terms of mindfulness. For me, what I really loved about him is that he had done a PhD, so he was very organized. So he helped me with the chapters, and it was really great because you need someone to be a little more detailed in that sense. And I had like the broad vision. This is what
Yeah.
I wanted to go to. So I was like the project manager of the of the book, and he really helped me through that.
Did you have any bumpy
So it was
bits
really
that you
great.
had to get through? I mean, you had this common why, which was fabulous.
Yeah.
But did you ever
Yeah.
kind of go, oh my gosh, why did I, was there anything like that ever? No.
No.
You
It
probably
was
can't
just
say
beautiful.
he'll hear.
No, well, yeah. I mean, technically, yes, but no, it was beautiful, and I know that he would agree because we talked about it, and we were
Neat.
like ecstatic when we talked over the phone sometimes because it was through a Google document, and we would write away, and then maybe a phone call once a month, not very often, right?
Yeah.
And okay, I see where this is going to, and I think we could connect this and that, and maybe write about this, but it was really this great collaborative process where we totally met eye to eye. Now, there were bits, of course, in mindfulness. That's my expertise, right? And his expertise, he actually did a PhD looking specifically at empathizing in online media and online learning. That was very, very
What
also
a great
like
match.
just now, right? Yeah. So what we came to realize, because I already had realized it somehow, but and even had this model in my head and everything, but what we realized is how impactful it was. And
The
I
collaboration.
got that feedback. No, the mindful empathy connection, sorry,
Right.
that was tremendously impactful because, and this is what I was saying, but then to see it also with somebody who's processing it, with someone who has that academic background, who does and experiential background as well, that it was so powerful. It was like, oh my God, this is really powerful, right? And we talk about developing our emotional intelligence, and why do we need to develop it? Especially, I mean, it's good for us, right? Because
Yeah.
emotional intelligence is all about feeling well with who we are, feeling confident in who we are, right? In emotional intelligence theory, they talk about empathy, and in counseling, psychology, and education, it's all about empathizing. But what I realized is that through myself, my own experience, I was an over empathizer. I would over empathize. And what happened is that I had to learn about other cultures, try to adapt to other cultures. But in the meantime, I had to kind of like forget I was I, or whoever this person this
Yes. Yeah.
was, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was over empathizing, and I was not protecting myself. And
Yeah.
through mindfulness meditation, which I've been doing for 10 years since the earthquakes, I realized that this was the missing piece. It's like, okay, fine, let's get self-aware. That's a big piece of emotional intelligence. Okay, how do you develop emotional stability, right?
Mm.
You're self-aware. Okay, go ahead, be self-aware.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'll
Go
switch
go
on, and now I'm
go sit on
self-aware.
a mountain. Go sit on a
Yeah.
mountain by yourself. And yeah, it is. It's like that, the difference between your own journey and sharing it with someone, and the beautiful sort of collaboration that takes place. And I think it's kind of, it goes back to some of the stuff that you were saying at the beginning about, your own personal journey, but and it's the psych, and then the sociology of it, like we are
Mhm.
beings with other people.
What's really important then to be able to empathize in a way that's healthy is that we are mindful of what's going on here. Well, how much can I take? When do I need to withdraw a little? What can I, it's really protecting yourself and developing compassion. Like, okay, yeah, this person is suffering, but you know what? I've got it too. We're
Yeah.
all human beings. We all have a body. We all have feelings. We all have emotions. We all want to be important, et cetera, et cetera. How can you develop that self-awareness? It is through having that moment of mindful meditation, connection, visualization, and say, aha, okay, yeah, this is what's going on with me. Ah, okay. Like the airplane, that
Oxygen
image
mask.
about the oxygen mask. Help yourself first, and then you can help the child.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is the same thing. Mindfulness is taking care of yourself. And if you take care of yourself, then you can take care of others.
This is so critical right now. I mean, not only for businesses and individuals. I'm just thinking of all the moms out there, or all the parents, or all the, I mean, my sister and I still joke about my mom being the martyr. I don't know if you're an Argentinian
Yeah.
sort of relationship, it was the same. So we learned to just give, exactly the scenario that you were talking about, the empathizing, giving. And it was selfish. It was seen as selfish if you
Yes.
spend any time whatsoever thinking about your own mindfulness. I can totally see the oxygen mask thing as being so critical, but yet you're up against it with all these other cultural mores, the intergenerational stuff that we were taught, and then just you're a bad mom if you're working, you're a bad mom if you're not spending time with and I mean, you can be a bad dad too, but I mean, this kind of cuts through all of that noise.
Absolutely. And this is what I wanted to say as well, is that now this is in Spanish. I'm okay, you're okay. This influenced me a lot. And it talks about the adult, the child, and the parent. While we're still looking for answers through our parents and their beliefs, we're still being the child. Mindfulness helps you to connect with who you are, regardless of beliefs, and it helps to connect here with your heart, not here. This screws us up.
I agree. I agree 1000% with that, Dani. 1000%. Honestly. I mean, yeah, if I had it to do over again, I don't think I'd go to school at all. But anyways, that's just, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. There's a moment in life that you need to say, okay, I mean, if you're a child, okay, you're a child. You just grow up and at some point, hopefully you learn about mindfulness. And now, at least in schools, I see that they're emphasizing more, at least here in New Zealand, they're emphasizing more to have kids connect with their mindfulness activities. So I love that. That's really great. Really getting into that adulthood, right? And it doesn't mean being old. Okay. It means simply that you are you, as opposed to you are what people tell you you need to be. It's your decision. And that's where, and going back to that identity issue that I had before, that's when I finally could learn, okay, I'm me. This is me. There's good, bad, doesn't matter. This is me. We all have, and I don't even believe too much in good and bad anymore.
Yeah.
It's just because it's states of mind. If we can forget that because we do something, we're bad and we have to be guilty. I mean, yesterday we were talking about that. I gave a talk in a book club, a Spanish speaking book club here in Christchurch. And there, the theme of guilt came up so much, which is kind of a little bit linking to what you were saying, right? It's that guilt if you don't give. And so it's not really about being guilty or being good or being bad. There's states of mind and everything changes. And that's how the world is moving anyways. And that's why it's such a pertinent thing to learn now with so many changes. Now we have the opportunity to actually even want to change. And when I'm talking about change, is change those beliefs that are not working for you. Change those beliefs that are saying you're not good enough because you're not giving enough, for instance.
Absolutely. Is it time?
For the
Can we do?
visualization?
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever you think would be useful. Just as sort of the 101 learner series, to give people a bit of a taste of what they can expect, and how it works.
Okay, actually, I think it would be a good idea to work with guilt, since that came up, right? Because that's what I always do. I don't pre-prepare.
Yep.
I just listen. What are the issues that are coming up? Let's do a little meditation that will help with this issue that's presenting itself right now. Because again, it's about being present, mindful of what we're experiencing right now.
Great. Sounds
Okay.
good.
And another thing, just to encourage, because I heard, another thing that came up yesterday was, oh, I'm too afraid to go to my emotions, too afraid. And I was like, there's nothing to be afraid of. Do acknowledge what's going on, and there's nothing to be afraid of. Okay, so I've helped people who tried to even commit suicide, had sexually abusive parents, abusive
Yeah.
parents. They all could heal through doing this process, right? Because it's
Yeah.
about healing. It's recognizing and feeling, connecting again. What happened in the past that really screwed me up today? Okay. And then getting past it and then deciding I am going to move forward. So there's really nothing to be afraid of. And if someone does feel that, so a listener, does feel that this is not the right time, by all means, just trust your gut instincts. It might not be your time. Okay. So just go along with it. And if it feels uncomfortable, speak with someone. Okay. There are lots of people you can speak to. There's counselors, there's friends, there's family. Speak. If you don't speak, then because that itself is a little more healing, because you get it out of your system. Okay. So yourself, trust your gut instincts, but believe me, there's nothing to be afraid of with your emotions, because they all come from somewhere. We just don't know why. And the why is what really frightens us. Okay. With this said, let's take a situation of guilt. Let's try to put a little bit of context around it, because that will help me to kind of, steer because what we do is first a meditation, and the meditation is what gets you into a more calm state of mind. And when you're in a more calm state of mind, you are more open to receiving. Okay, so basically we're getting out of our brain and getting into our heart. The more you can relax into it and trust the process, the easier it gets. And now I know it's a big ask because you don't know me from before, the listener, but trust your gut instincts. If it doesn't feel right, then that's the moment to log off. Let's adopt. Now I'm going to just make a general situation, and hopefully it really touches you. If it doesn't apply to you. This is just a trial with someone who it will touch. Okay, so let's take the situation that we were talking about earlier, where we feel guilty because we're not giving enough according to our influences, our people we love, right? Be it our parents, society as a whole. Sometimes we perceive, right, we're not giving enough. Okay, we're going to go along with that to see if we can ease our guilt. Okay, so you begin by adopting a comfortable posture and having a straight back. I don't want you dozing off, so let's have a straight back. We close our eyes, and you might keep them just slightly open if you can, just so that you get a little bit of light in and you don't doze off again. Okay, so now we'll take some deep breaths, 2 or 3, so that we can feel the relaxation. If you do not feel so relaxed yet, you can still give it a try to breathe this time by pumping up your belly, inflating it like a balloon, and then letting go gently without straining, just naturally. So blow like a balloon. And now we feel a little more relaxed. Let's enjoy this moment of relaxation and take a few more moments to relax. There's no need to think about anything else at the moment. We're just going to focus on this meditation and the visualization to follow. Now we will find a positive motivation to do this visualization that's coming. And the positive motivation is that you will benefit yourself and feel more comfortable, more happy, more peaceful. And through this, you will also be able to be more peaceful in front of others, and more accepting of yourself and others. So let's rejoice, let's be happy about this opportunity. Now that you're more relaxed, let's go back and imagine a moment, recent or further away in time, but a moment that you remember when you felt extremely guilty or just a little guilty. Where does this guilt manifest on your body? Is it in your heart? Is it in your forehead? In your brain? You can touch with your hand the place. Maybe it's your belly, butterflies in your stomach, or maybe it's your neck, some tension that you felt when you felt guilty. Try to find the location of your guilt. For me, it's my heart, so I will place my hand on my heart. Were you guilty because, or did you feel guilty because you didn't help your parent, your child, your boss, your colleagues when you were asked to? Do you feel that you were selfish when you said no instead of helping? Try to connect with the moment. How did you feel back then? How was it? Did you have some reason why you rejected it, or was it a selfish reason? Were you busy doing other things that were also important? Did you yell at your son or your daughter, your children, and now you feel guilty? Relate this to your situation. Why did it happen? What was going on inside you? What was running through your thoughts? Were you in complete control of the situation? Or were you just angry, irritated because you were being interrupted? Did you have clarity of mind? Realizing that the answer is no, and that you were probably not in a perfect state of mind, and therefore maybe even got angry or didn't give the way you were expected to give, or they told you that they wanted you to give. Then imagine that right then and there, you did what you could, given the circumstances right then and there. It was just a moment. It is not permanent, and you are human, just like anybody else. So be kind to yourself. And to this part of the body, say, I forgive you. Be compassionate and know you had a bad moment. But this does not define you. This is not who I am. Say to yourself, this is not who I am. This is just a moment. There is no need to feel guilty, because guilt will not take the moment away, and it will not make me feel better, and it will not improve the situation. So be kind, be kind, be kind. And that way, you will feel better. And so will others around you, who will see you more peaceful with yourself. And you can get back to doing whatever it is you were doing, but more relaxed and happy and peaceful, because you know there is no reason to feel guilty, but there is reason to forgive and to be kind to yourself. Once you are ready, I will count to 3 and you can open your eyes. But just enjoy these last moments of relaxation and peacefulness with yourself. And enjoy that you will be more able to be connected with others in a peaceful way as well. Take a deep breath 1, 2, 3, and open your eyes.
Oh,
How was it for
that was
you?
that was great. You know, even just the beginning, just slowing down and stopping, and I just felt, just even at the beginning, before you even started getting into any of the like the guilt focus, it just felt like it was such a gift to just be still.
Isn't
So
it?
even that was a benefit
Mm.
before getting on to that. That was so incredible, just to feel where it was in the body as well. And, you know, in the moment,
Mm.
that it's just a moment. It's not,
Mm.
all these things that you've been explaining around separating, the hallucinations, this part of your brain, that it's the external versus the stuff. It's all so, it makes sense. It doesn't feel like it's unattainable or heebie-jeebie, oogie-woogie stuff sort of thing. It seems very practical and really useful.
Mm. And just to show you another book, because I know as an author, we like books, right?
Yes, totally.
So another book, which is a little out of context, because I'm not really about,
Ah,
that, oh, let's grow rich. But this man, Napoleon Hill, he was a big influencer for me too, because he talks about auto-suggestion. And there's a little bit of this, right? It's that suggesting to yourself what you really want to achieve and seeing it before you. And that's pretty much what we do with the visualization, but it's that having that positive reinforcement towards what you want to achieve, right?
mm.
In this case, what we wanted to achieve is to relax that guilt. My goodness, what's it for? I mean, is it going to be productive? Is it going to be useful? Is it going to help you? Is it going to make you feel good and peaceful? No.
No way.
Okay, so because it's no, then let's suggest to our mind, to our brain, let's get those thoughts in. It's feeding that positive thinking. And that thinking, because some will say, oh, why positive? Okay, positive in the sense that it helps you, that it makes you feel more peaceful, more happy. That is the positive side. It's not negating that there are bad feelings out there. For instance, it's not negating if you're having a low time. It's not that. It's simply saying, okay, what are you doing to make yourself feel happy, content, accepting of yourself, accepting of the situation? The reason why we get angry and sometimes suffer and see that, oh, somebody passed away. For me, it was a big one with my mom. Yeah, it's because we're thinking always about ourselves. On my mom's deathbed, I couldn't really, or I feel I couldn't be 100% there for her. And I felt lots of guilt for that. But the reason was because I couldn't feel comfortable enough, peaceful enough to be there for her the way she would have most needed. So I've been working on that a lot. She passed away 7 years ago. And it's really that giving yourself some space and give yourself a break for God's sake.
I know. It is. It's just when you were saying at the end of the visualization about be kind, I mean, and I know we've kind of got this COVID sort of social media campaign around be kind as well, but it works. It's like as soon as you start, like you tell kids, be kind, be gentle, be kind, and being that way to yourself. And those words are just, there's such beautiful and simple words that I don't know if we use them enough especially with ourselves,
Yes. And we're stronger. We're our strongest opponent, really. We have
Absolutely.
ourselves 24/7. That's the reality. We have ourselves 24/7. So if we don't give ourselves a break, who will? We have somewhere around 600 to 100,000 thoughts per day. That's crazy. Stop. We need to stop ourselves from thinking. And the thinking isn't always, I mean, some thinking, of course, is productive, right? We need to think to, you know, move from one place to another, get what we need, etc.
Yeah.
But a lot of thinking is, oh, what did he say and why? And
Yeah.
I don't know
Totally.
if I did this right, or I don't know if I'll fit in, or I have the imposter syndrome, or, you know, a whole bunch of things that if they were useful, like if you say, oh, I have the imposter syndrome. Okay, so now let's do something so that I'm not an imposter. Okay, what could I do to not be an imposter?
Exactly.
Okay, good. That's helping you work out and move along. But if you're like, oh, I'm an imposter. Oh, I don't know. When are they going to figure out that I actually don't belong here? You know? Then you're in the defensive mode, you're in a fearful mode, and you won't be able to make clear decisions, and you're just getting anxious and worried, and you're just making hell for yourself. And nobody
Absolutely.
else, just you. Nobody else realizes, it's just you. And I realize that through public speaking, right? You're speaking and then others say, oh, that was wonderful. Oh, okay. And you had all these butterflies in your stomach, and you start criticizing yourself. So now I have this policy not to criticize myself. Whatever happens, good. That's good enough.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the moment. That's what I could give. That's it. I'm not going to criticize myself. Why? Because then, you know, I'll, you know, you push myself down.
Absolutely.
And you just need to move forward, and, you know, it's the flow. One day it works, then it didn't work that well. Let's reflect. How was it? Be mindful. Oh, okay. You know, so just not be so serious about yourself.
Well, I mean, you have peppered through the book all these different quotes from Buddha and things, and I think it sort of picks up on some of the things you've just been saying there. My favorite one was related to this is with our thoughts we make the world. You know, and it's kind of like all. It's what you've been talking about in different layers and different contexts and things. I just wonder, as we start to close up our time together, is there, I know it's hard to say one thing, but is there one piece of advice or strategy that you would give and leave people with just about being more authentic, living happier? What would that advice be, Dani?
Yeah, I think I kind of summarized it a tiny bit at the end, and that's be kind to yourself, and you too, right? With that kind, be kind to yourself. It's no good to be running to see who you can please, because there are lots of pleasers out there. Hello. That was my background as well, right? Lot pleasing. You need to, you know, if you want to please someone, please yourself, okay? And not in a selfish way. Okay, it's not about selfishness. Please yourself in the sense of try to love yourself as you are, accept yourself as you are, and that will help you also to be okay with being authentic, right? Just be who you are. There will be people who like you, there will be people who don't like you, but if you're happy in your skin because you're with yourself 24/7, remember that. Okay, so you have to like yourself. Be okay with yourself, be authentic, and just remember to connect with yourself. How am I feeling? If you're not feeling okay, there's an indication that something is not right. You need to give yourself attention. Through that, I hope that you are no longer afraid of your emotions. Come from what you're thinking. You are producing the own life and your own hallucinations. Let's make them positive hallucinations. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Dani Rius, for sharing a bit about your life and a bit about the story and your work, your book, Mindful Empathy, the mindset of success of leaders of the future, which I know is going to be, you know, grabbed off the shelves by a lot of, I think about some of my clients that could really, you know, start with that. and also just how to stay happy and focused, and some of the tips that you've had for living authentically. You've got a website, mindful-empathy.com, mindful-empathy.com. And you also mentioned before we started that you were happy to give a little bonus to our listeners, and today. Maybe you could just share with that before we wrap up.
Yes, I would love for you to get in touch and just send me an email at dani.rius@danirius.com, and I will gift you with a $5 voucher for the physical book that's coming out close to the end of the year. And plus, send you information when that book launch is really happening.
Fantastic. I'm definitely going to be there. I'm coming down for that. So you just make sure you send me an invite.
Wonderful.
I want to come
will.
to that. Thank you so much, Dani Rius. And thank you to our community for joining us on the Authentic Living and Loving channel. If you have a story to share that will inspire others, we'd love to hear from you. Until we meet again, I'm Dr. Jordan Alexander, encouraging you to join the You Be You revolution. And let's all live a life we don't need a vacation from. Thank you, Dani.
Love it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching the Authentic Living channel. If you liked the show, please subscribe, like, and share. Sponsored by learningforlivingacademy.com.